Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this October 1st version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon, and we are on the EOA.network is where you can find all of our content. There also is a place, our content is sponsor supported, but as you may or may not know, our sponsors don't always cover our expenses, and so if you enjoy our content and you want to support us, there is a link there also that you can help support what it is that we do. And here in just a bit, we are going to have Calvin Bennet and Union County Chamber of Commerce Executive Director Caitlin Harrold will be here with us to talk about the political forum. They are going to be the moderators for the forum that is happening this Thursday night at La Grande High School at 6 p.m., and it will also be on the EOA network. Yeah. How are you, man?
Morning. Second Monday.
Yeah.
My favorite time of year. Crappy weather and politics. Yippee.
See, and as far as I'm concerned, the weather is fantastic.
Crappy weather's coming. It's not horrible during the day, but
it's cool in the morning.
It was cold this morning.
It was
not just cool. It was cold.
No, I know. And when I got up, and it was like, I was like, man, I should have put a sweater on or should have.
Yeah, I used a blanket last night for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
Well, I usually just use a sheet.
Yeah.
Because I gotta have something. But then last night I actually had to bust out the blanket. Yeah.
Yep.
Not fun. Not fun at all. No.
Well, and we'll look at the weather here in a minute, but it's going to be 80 degrees today. So
Right.
it's like.
We lost two legends in sports yesterday, Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo. Pete Rose, man, what a shame. The Major League Baseball did. He broke the rules, but he's still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous that they're not putting guys in. Like, you know how you can't just filter the guys that you want and the guys that you don't want. There's guys in the Hall of Fame that use steroids.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
But there's this big, woke movement, like we're not letting people in with steroids anymore. We're not letting Pete Rose in because he bet on baseball. Yeah. Who cares? That didn't affect how he played on the field. You know what I mean? Like this was, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, wasn't it this morning I was listening, and his rookie year was 1963. It was just a couple of years after I was born. So, I didn't follow. I was just too young. I just didn't follow baseball very much then. But I saw a social media video of him talking about batting not too long ago, and giving up some of his secrets on how he choked up on the bat and what he did and so on and so forth. And
one of the most
super interesting. Yeah,
one of the most famous hitting videos there is him, Frank Thomas, and A-Rod, and they're all It's during in between innings at a baseball, but they're standing in the studio, and Pete Rose talks about how when you're in a slump, you don't change anything other than where you're standing in the box.
Yeah.
He said either move closer to the pitcher, move further away from the pitcher, move closer to the plate, or move further away from the plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I mean, when you baseball-wise as a hitter, that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to change your swing. You don't want to do all this stuff. Just change the angle a little bit, and it can change everything. It's crazy. Yeah. Pete Rose was a great hitter too, and intense, super intense. I remember there's a highlight video. I don't remember what year it is, but he ran the catcher over at home in an all-star game, which is like crazy. You know what I mean? Right. That's how intense the guy was. Right. He's like, I'm going to run your catcher over in an all-star game.
Yeah. Charlie Hustle was his
Charlie
nickname.
Hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. And who was the other guy? I hadn't.
Dikembe Mutombo. He was at Georgetown. He played, I don't know, probably 15 years in the NBA, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. He was one of the greatest rim protectors of the 90s by far. He's famous for doing the finger wag. Now people do it all the time. When he blocked a shot, he would wag his finger like, "Nah, don't come in here." Yeah, Mutombo. And not only that, Mutombo was a huge activist and just anybody that talks about him. They interviewed Magic Johnson yesterday, and they just talk about how great he was for the sport and just for humanity, really.
Was he very old? Couldn't have been.
Yeah, he was probably close to 60. right around there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like I want to say maybe a little younger than Jordan, so right around there.
Not very old though.
No.
Yeah.
Pete Rose was 75, I think. I think Pete Rose born 41. So whatever the math is on that, 59 plus 75. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got Pete Rose's autograph.
You got what?
Pete Rose's autograph. I have.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Fun.
Oh yeah. Yep. Got my dad and mom have a picture with him in Vegas.
Huh.
Yeah. That's how he made a lot of his money at the end of his career, is doing autograph
Making
signings.
appearances and
Yeah,
show.
of
Yeah.
course. Yep.
Well, and that would be a thing to do.
I think he might. I'm not. Don't quote me on this, but he might have been the last player manager in Major League Baseball. Back in the old days, guys used to be the manager and play.
And play it.
Yeah. And they did it in basketball too, but I think Pete Rose might have been the last one to do it.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. You're the manager. You're telling, and you're filling out the lineup card, and your name's in it. That'd be weird.
That would. All right. Hey, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Buffalo Peak Golf Course. Get out there and see Dana. Go through Union, take a left, go up the hill. 18-hole, beautiful link style course. It's getting towards the end of the golfing season, so if you want to get some golf in, now's the time to do it. Buffalo Peak Golf Course. Meet me at the peak. EOU football finally got the monkey off their back this Saturday in Billings. They beat Rocky 23-20. It was a great game. I watched it online. Senior quarterback Quincy Glasper had a huge day for the Mounties, connecting on 19 of 30 passes for 296 yards and a touchdown. But he also ran 15 times for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Jason Grant, who's a senior linebacker, had 5 tackles, a forced fumble, and an interception with like 3 minutes left in the game that sealed the deal for the Mounties. It was in the end zone. Rocky was driving. They were about to score, and Jason Grant picks off the ball to seal the deal. And, man, EOU really needed this win. They really did. They started the season 0-3. They're now 1-1 in the Frontier Conference, which is good. I mean, this is the toughest conference in the country. So if EOU can finish 5,500 in this conference, I'll be a happy person. They go to Glendale, Arizona this Saturday to take on Arizona Christian, which I don't want to jinx them, but that should be a win for the Mounties. The Arizona Christian is not a super strong. They're new to the conference. This is their second year in the Frontier. And I think EOU should be able to pull off a dub on Saturday. EOU volleyball got 2 wins over the weekend, beating Warner Pack on Friday, 3-1. I mean, I couldn't even believe Warner Pack got a set. We started off a little bit slow. We had some backups in. I mean, this is the weekend where we would, Warner Pack and Multnomah. And then they turned around Saturday and swept Multnomah. So as of now, they're 16-1 on the season. They're number 2 in the country. They go to Walla Walla Friday for a 2 p.m. tip. And then Saturday, they go to Lewiston to take on LC State at 4 o'clock. So, I mean, from here on out, it's just games every weekend. They have one more midweek game against C of I, 2 Wednesdays from now. Homecoming's coming up October 12th, which is going to be super exciting. That's just a packed day of events for EOU. EOU men's soccer up their record to 4-1-1 and remained undefeated in the CCC with a victory over Walla Walla 4-0 and Rocky 1-0 over the weekend. They go to Southern on Friday and take on the Raiders, and then they turn around and play OIT on Saturday. EOU women's soccer lost a tough one in Billings to Rocky 1-0, dropping their record to 2-3-2. They also go to down south this weekend for the Southern OIT trip. EOU cross country is in Salem this weekend at the Charles Bowles Invitational. And that the men's cross country team ranked number 8 in the country, and they're going to make some waves in the CCC. It's going to be them and C of I right at the top at the end of the season. LeGrand's girls soccer beat Ontario last Thursday 6-1. They are 6-1-1 and go to Baker for a GOL matchup with the Bulldogs at 4 p.m. today. While the boys soccer team lost to Riverside on Saturday to bring their record to 3-5, they go to Baker as well today. They kick off at 6 o'clock. LHS volleyball lost to Baker Thursday 3-1, dropping their record to 2-8. They host Pendleton tomorrow in a GOL matchup at the high school at 6:30 p.m. LHS football went on the road and got their second win of the season against Nissa. They're 2-2 and go to Ontario on Friday to kick off GOL play. That game kicks off at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Other GOL scores: Baker got beat by Cascade 48-6. Ontario had a bye. Pendleton beat Estacada 59-28, and Crook County beat Gladstone 25-0. We're streaming the Baker versus Pendleton game this Friday right here on the EOA Live Network. So tune in 7 o'clock Friday night, Baker Pendleton, which is it has huge implications on the GOL. Football scores around the valley: Imbler lost to Crane 62-20. Elgin lost to Powder Valley 54-8. Union beat Pilot Rock 66-14, and Cove lost to Adrian 54-12. And like I said, Baker and Pendleton this Friday, 7 p.m. live from Bulldog Stadium. It'll be right here on the EOA Network. AM Sports Report brought to you by Buffalo Peak Golf Course. Meet me at the Peak.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look outside. And Kyle and I were talking earlier. It's like, I love this time of year. Fall is my favorite. And it's just beautiful. But it was chilly this morning.
Yeah.
It was it was sweatshirt weather this morning. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then let's look at the graphic. But it's going to get up to 80 degrees today.
And not anywhere near as cold tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, 47, that's probably 10, 12 degrees warmer than it was last night.
No, there has been like a freeze warning. At least there was on Sunday night, I think. And so then the rest of the days, 67 tomorrow, 71 Thursday, 76 on Friday. So over the weekend, it looks like it's going to be
It's going to get down
beautiful.
Below freezing tomorrow night, though.
Yeah.
Look at that, 28. Whew.
Wow. Oh, yeah, you're right.
It's this fall weather here. It can never decide what it wants to do.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Have you heard have you been tracking any hunters? Are they successful?
I haven't talked to anybody.
Yeah.
No, I did watch this cool video of these kids in Rigby. I don't know how long it was ago, but Rigby, Idaho, you know.
Right.
They were out hunting. It was like on a local TV network, and it was an interview, kind of like what we did with what's his face, that got attacked by the bear.
Yeah,
they got attacked by a grizzly though.
Oh man,
they both had pistols on them. They shot that bear 24 times.
Yeah,
the one kid's arm was just
mangled
mauled.
up.
Yeah. 24 times they had to shoot that bear.
No, that is not. I've heard. Yeah, that is not unusual.
24
I mean, I've
times.
heard stories of that. Yeah, it's so. So while I'm thinking about it, so on Friday night, Embler High School, and we haven't talked about this, but I'd like to see if we can cover just the part of this live. They're having their first football game under the lights. So that Embler has had this gigantic project of redoing the track, and then part of that is also redoing the lights, because up until now, all of their games have had to be middle of the afternoon on Friday because they didn't have lights. And so anyhow, that'll be kind of cool. So that's the first. So I guess they're going to have, I was talking to Steve the other day. Steve West is a big part of making that project happen. Thank you, Steve, for what it is that you've thrown in on that. And so then they're going to have the team come out and in the dark, and then they're going to turn on the lights and do the game or something. So that should be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So their first game out there. All right. Hey, thank you guys. I'm glad you're here with us today. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Calvin and Caitlin. We'll be talking about the forum that will be at the high school on this Thursday night at 6 p.m. We'll be right back.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
All right, and we are back with Caitlin in the studio and Calvin at his place on the west side somewhere. Can you hear us, Calvin? Everything working okay this morning?
Yep, I can hear you perfectly, Brent.
Good.
Oh, I would have taken that Cowboys thing down before I got on TV if I was you.
Oh, I know. I know how you feel, Nazi, but how about them Cowboys beat the Giants this week? Let's go.
Yeah, they did. I can't say much. My Chargers lost, so I'll just keep it quiet over here.
Oh, that's tough. Hopefully they bounce back. Love Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Who won that game last night? Did Seattle pull that game out? No.
Seattle lost.
Yeah. Anyhow, different topic. So, all right. Well, hey, thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. And glad that you're here. We're here to talk about the forum that is happening this Thursday night. And real quick, put the graphic up. If you have a question that you want to submit for the forum, you can scan that QR code, or you can go to, I can't quite see that, but I think it is forumquestion.com, and there is a place where you can submit questions. And then we'll also be receiving questions the night of the forum also in a similar manner. So, all right. So, thank you guys for being here. So, how are you doing this morning, Caitlin?
Great. It's a very early morning for me, but so far so good. I'm happy to join you.
Yeah, we have people all the time that say like, "What? It's at 8 a.m." And certainly when I talked about this show with Kyle originally, it was like, "What? At 8 a.m.?" And now he's the one that's here before everybody else.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I like it, though. I just deal.
Well, and what's funny is, I mean, so many of our guests are like theater people or whatever. I mean, people that have a lot of activities in the evening, and so yeah, mornings are not necessarily
Their favorite.
Yeah, great. All right, and so Calvin, you graduated from EOU last year. You were the student body president. Kind of catch us up on what it is that you're doing now.
Yeah, so graduated in June from Eastern. Super thankful for that great experience. Mount up. That week I got a call from some consultants over here in East Multnomah County, which is Gresham area. And just based on my work in politics and working on Senator Todd Nash's campaign this last cycle and pushing him over the line in the primary, they called me up and said, "Calvin, we know you like winning races. Why don't you come win some races over here?" So literally that week I graduated and I packed up everything I owned into my car and got rid of the rest, and I drove over here, and now I'm renting a room from someone here in Gresham, and I'm now the campaign manager for two candidates for State House, HD 40, House District 49 and House District 50. So both represent the Gresham area.
Well, cool. And so you're getting paid for what it is that you've really enjoyed doing then.
Yes, and it's very awesome. Super fun. Temporary gig definitely expires on November 5th. So I'm looking forward to the 5th, but it's going to be a big night.
Well, good. And Caitlin, kind of catch us up on. You've been here almost a year now, so yeah. So talk for the people who might not know. You're the executive director of Union County Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
How's that going? Yeah.
It's been great so far. Yeah. I moved to this area back in October, so yeah, a year now, and then started my position with the chamber in December, and just kind of been a whirlwind since. Been able to do lots of different things, like the candidate forum, things like that just keep popping up. So it's been good.
Good. Now the chamber and the Observer combined together and did a forum for the primary.
Yes, we
Yeah.
did. Yeah, so it kind of happened just like this one. I've been contacted by people within the community saying, hey, I think this is something we really need to do. And then after hearing a couple requests, I was like, yeah, you're right, we should do this. So
Yeah.
I would start preparing. And then the Observer reached out and was like, hey, I think we can partner on this, help promote it, help moderate, and really get the word out there to make this a successful event for the community. And so, yeah, great partners there. And then kind of same thing happened, and you reached out and wanted to partner, and I was like, that's great. So here we are.
Yeah. Well, and we traditionally have not been in the organization part of the forum itself. Our first experience during COVID, which was like being thrown into the fire. So during COVID, we carried a virtual forum of the sheriff's race, which at that time had 4 candidates in it, and then also the state race that Cliff Bentz, the representative, that was the congressman race that Cliff Bentz is now serving in. There were like 15 candidates that were a part of that race.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Whew.
And so,
Calvin, we can hear you clocking.
yes. And so anyhow, so then that was a virtual event that us and EO Media put together.
Okay.
EO Media Group, and that's the group that owns they own all of the newspapers. So that was kind of our first experience in doing that, and it went well. So then my presumption, and we've been a part of several debates or several forums that Calvin and Isaac have put together in the past. And so Calvin graduated. Isaac Ensko is he's the president this year of EOU, the student body president of this year, and so he was not able to be involved in putting together a forum, and so anyhow, so that's why I kind of jumped into it, is because I knew that I felt like we really needed to do something, and you guys had clearly partnered before, and so that's kind of how that got started.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then when you and I were talking, we drug Calvin into that and said, well, who else could we have, that would help moderate that event? And so Calvin, you're going to make the trip over on Thursday morning to help do this. So yeah, how do you feel about that? I mean, it's like you're coming home. Well, I mean, it's not home, but
Yeah, I'm super excited. I love LeGrand. I mean, it's my college town. Spent the last 4 years there, and I'm going to be hanging out with a lot of people. Definitely being able to spend some time. I'm taking a couple days off for the trip, so it's going to be I'm very excited to come back, and then of course help the community. I think forums like this are incredibly important for voters to know about who their candidates are. I mean, of course, we're moderating a forum for both the chamber and the sheriff, which are both positions that have a lot of powers that can influence the everyday lives of the citizens of Union County. And so we just want to be able to really get out there and have an event where you can learn as much as possible and have these candidates answer questions that impact you and that you care about. And that's going to be really, really awesome. And I'm super thankful to be involved in it.
good. Now, Calvin, you're kind of a little bit of a veteran at this by now. At least you've been involved in several forums. And I remember the first one that you and Isaac did. It was the commissioner forum. And at that time it was Paul Anders was running, and he had an opponent. It was his re-election, or his, I don't know. And anyhow, I think that's the first one that you and Isaac did. Is that right? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, spring of 2022 is Commissioner Paul Anders' re-election campaign against Lisa
Right.
Hill.
So what are some of the things that you've learned and observed since then, being on the organizational side of all that?
Oh my gosh, my number one thing is transparency and just making sure that everything that we're doing is available to the candidates, and then if someone asks, that we can defend any decision that we make. So, how we made questions, how we decided the organization, just always being in contact with the candidates, calling them, texting them, making sure that they're okay and that they're satisfied with what they want. That's my number one thing, is transparency and just how decisions are made. So that's
So
it.
how did what are some of the mistakes that you've made along the way, do you think?
Oh man, that's a good one.
That's a little harder, yeah.
That's a good one. The nice thing about Isaac's and I's partnership is that we often challenge each other. And so when he comes up with an idea, I'm like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And we're able to form those to be better. And then he'll do the same thing to me. And so I can't, off the top of my head, there's definitely been a couple mistakes, definitely logistically. So one is that some of the debates, we didn't have a timer that was publicly seen. So it would just be a phone on the desk that only the moderators could see for timelines. So we're gonna be fixing that with this debate, I know, and then so everyone can see the timeline of how much people are talking. So you're given 2 minutes to speak for a question. You'll know that you've already gone over a minute and a half or whatnot. So we'll be doing that, and then I'd say little logistic things like that, where it's just like, oh, let's do that next time, or let's do that next time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and how about you, Caitlin? What are some of the things that you learned from that forum that you did?
Well, the list definitely goes on, considering it was the first forum that I've ever been a part of. But luckily, like I said, we had a really great partner that was able to kind of take the lead on that. So
Right.
It was really great for me to just kind of soak it up and kind of figure out the ropes. And so just the whole process was just a learning experience. So I'm looking forward to seeing, what differences there are this time around versus last time. But so far, I mean, both processes have been pretty great so far. So
Now one thing that has surprised me about you is you come across a little bit meek, timid,
yes,
but
I've
you're
heard
not that way. No,
I try
mean,
not to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you be incredibly decisive.
I try.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely I've gotten that before. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I admire that. I admire that approach, and so, yeah. I mean, so for both of you, I mean, what are and Calvin? Let's start with you. What have you learned in? I mean, you mentioned this a little bit. What have you learned in handling candidates? Because, I mean, you guys did the District 29 forum at EOU at McKinsey Theater, and that was that was kind of a contentious race in a lot of ways. I don't know what is something you kind of learned from handling candidates in that, do you think?
Yeah, that was a super cool project. I kind of view it as my capstone, my senior capstone before graduating. But yeah, number one, just transparency. Number two is just being open to communication. All the candidates had my phone number. All the candidates had Isaac's phone number and could call and text us at any point. And we just made that evident. And then it was just constant communication. I made first contact with all of them in, I think, November of 23, when the debate was hosted in April of 24, and was just like, hey guys, we're just putting this out there way in advance. Here's the date for this event. We're super excited. And then we kept them in the loop the entire time. Whenever issues popped up, we said, hey, well, this is what we think we're going to do. Are you guys good with this? If not, we'll see it. Just being able to work with candidates and really just show that you're organized and inspire confidence in them so that they want to show up and have a good time.
Well, and Calvin, in that you guys did something that I had never seen before that was entertaining, and that is you submitted questions that had been, you allowed the candidates to submit a question that they wanted to ask another candidate, which I think you called, hey, this is our spicy section. I didn't what.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you told me at some point that negotiating that part of it was like ticklish.
100%, 100%, and that's because it was spicy, as we called it. And I will give all props to Isaac on coming up with that and designing that section. I think it was really fun. So yeah, essentially what we did was we reached out to, or we had a random selection where each candidate was given the opportunity to ask two questions to another candidate that we read out. So for instance, candidate A would submit two questions about candidate B, and then Isaac and I would make sure it's good, kind of communicate with them, make sure that it's not, an ad hominem, it's not a personal attack or anything, and then we would read that question out during that section 2 of the debate, and that was really interesting because we wanted to make it more of a debate format than forum, and so try to make it a little bit more combative, try to get these guys to kind of hit it off with each other, because we were the only people in that district, which stretches from Wallowa County to Wheeler County to Wasco County, this massive District 29, able to host a debate. And so we really wanted to just kind of go at that one and have a really awesome event. And it was interesting. We got some great responses from that. We got some new perspectives that were brought up. It allowed the candidates to kind of air out some of their thoughts about each other. And I think it was successful, and it was really good.
Well, but it did become pretty personal, because the questions were the question were submitted to the candidate who was supposed to answer them, and a couple of different times they would say, "Yeah, I know that you," and they would point to another candidate. "I know that you're the one that submitted that question." And so it certainly cornered candidates in a manner that they hadn't been. Do you think it was it useful? Do you think that information came out to the public that they might not have known otherwise?
100%. So what I think it did give is it gave Commissioner Jim Doherty a chance to air out some of what was kind of going out on with his commissioner position regarding his recall election and the ethics investigation that he was under. It gave him a chance for him to say, from his perspective, what it was all about. And I think that was really good. And we gave him the 2 minutes, and then he kind of continued that after with another question, continued his story, which, there's not sure if that was the best thing, but it gave him a perspective to say that, which I had never even heard before, and I think many in the audience had not either. So,
well, and I can tell you that from from the standpoint of being a candidate, there were times that I'd be like, man, I wish I could throw in a question here, whether that be a question that would benefit me more, or that would, point out somebody else's lack of something. So, I get that. And, but you're right, that's a spicy road to go down. So Caitlin, you were a part of that forum, and there were 9 candidates with the county commissioners.
Yes, that had me sweating for sure.
Yeah. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was very interesting. Because in the past I've heard that we hadn't had 9 candidates. It really wasn't that many before. So that was really interesting to start my first forum off with. But like everything Calvin said, just upfront communication, clear, transparent is really the key to kind of organizing that many candidates. And so that's kind of what I led with. And, everybody was really great. And, all the candidates, really looked forward to the opportunity to share their ideas about what they could do for Union County. So, one of the biggest concerns I had going into the forum was time constraints.
Right.
With 9 candidates, how do we make sure that every single one of them feel like they have enough time to kind of speak on the issues that are important to them? And so that was a big challenge, especially considering not only were we doing commissioner candidates that night, we were also doing, oh my goodness, was it?
Well, the sheriff and judge.
The judge, yeah, the
Yes.
judge candidates as well. So, we had two different sections there.
Or no, we didn't
you know.
do
No
I think
sheriffs.
that was just the judge, then those two, right?
Yes, yep, correct. So just trying to figure out how to, get as much information out to the public as possible while still respecting everybody's time. That was a big challenge, but, it is what it is. But so I'm very thankful that this forum, we've just got our two county commissioners and our two sheriffs. So
Yeah.
time isn't as big of a concern now, and we can really focus on asking those important questions and giving them that platform to get their ideas out. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
I think we need to point something out for the viewers so they
Yeah.
don't get misconstrued. This is a forum coming up, not a debate.
Right.
So that there's a big difference. Calvin, tell them the difference. You
Yeah.
can word it better than me.
Of course, and feel free to hop in on this one, but how I personally view the difference is that a debate is a lot more combative is the main difference, where candidates can kind of push each other on ideas and challenge each other, while a forum is structured more to be like a town hall where candidates can go up there and say their piece, say what they stand for, say what they're going to do, and they respect each other and they don't really talk about each other while there. So that's kind of the main difference. I don't know. I'd love Dodzy if you wanted to hop in, or Bryn or Caitlin if you wanted as well.
I like exactly what you said. It's informational. Like the debate, you're basically debating, you're arguing, and then when you get into the forum, it's more about presenting information about yourself. I think forums are more self-focused and debates are more opponent-focused. In my own
No,
personal
that's a good way of
experience.
summing it
Yeah.
up. Yeah. So then, Caitlin, what would you say? I mean, and we had this question a little bit yesterday. Is what's the purpose of a forum? If we, what are we wanting the public to learn from this?
Yeah, obviously we're hoping to encourage the, civic responsibility, getting people out to make educated voting decisions for themselves. And I think the way to do that is by providing an event like a forum. It gets people out of their house and listening to their options for future Union County leadership, which we know impacts everybody who lives here. So I think it's really important that we encourage people to participate in that conversation. And like I said, just that we're allowing them to make their most informed decision that they can. So I think that's the main purpose of an event like this.
Okay, and so Calvin, how do you balance between what a candidate wants to say about themselves and the questions that might come to them from the public? I mean, where in a forum, where is that balance at? What do you think about that?
Well, that's actually a really good question, Brent. I might need a second to think about that one, but the audience is who I believe really matters. You want the people who are voting, the people who are making their decisions, probably largely based off of this forum, to be able to get their questions answered. And while the candidates are going to be saying what they want to say, and everything's going to be going through them because they're the ones speaking about it, it's really we want to get to what the audience wants to hear, and just making that available. And so I'm a person, when coming up with these events, I'm very audience focused. I think that's one of the reasons why we included that the spicy section of that last debate, was because we thought it was going to make it more entertaining in the middle, spice it up and help that retention, help people want to sit there and watch and be like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? So I'm very audience focused on that personally, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that question are, Brent.
Well, I think that, at the end of the day, and we've allowed for candidates to have an opening and closing statement in this event coming up, but when I was a candidate, I prepared for the opening and closing statements, and so then I'm writing a script essentially that makes me look the best, whatever the case might be, and that's not always the best for the voter, because it's not any different than marketing for your company. You're marketing yourself. So at the end of the day, the forum itself is to help the voters be familiar and get to know the candidate. Maybe in a way that the candidate didn't, maybe in the way the candidate didn't want them to know them. Now, that's not to mean that we're wanting to corner a candidate, but we're wanting, I mean, the questions that we're asking, we're hoping are answerable and they're relevant and they tell the voter something about the candidate. So, Caitlin, why don't you talk about a little bit about the structure and kind of how we've worked at trying to get at those particular things?
Yeah, just as as Calvin said, and you, Brent, really we're trying to make the experience best for everybody involved. And so there was a lot of thought put into kind of how we want to organize this. And ultimately, we kind of landed on this kind of structure where the commissioners will go first, the commissioner candidates, and everybody has a 2-minute opening statement. And we will be asking 4 questions that were created by the nominating committee. 3 following questions will have submitted from the public, either prior or during the event. So each county commissioner county commissioner candidate will be asked those 7 questions, and then we'll take a short intermission, or they'll have their closing statement, short intermission, and we'll move on to the same format for the sheriff candidates, and then we'll go home. So it's pretty simple.
So some of those questions, talk about how questions have been previously submitted and how they're going to be submitted
absolutely.
at the thing. Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago we released to the public a form where we asked for the public to submit any questions that they might have for these candidates. And so, it's an anonymous process, so the community's been submitting questions for the last couple weeks. And then the night of the forum, there will also be a very similar format to that for the public to submit their questions. And those questions will be reviewed and then submitted to the moderators where we can ask the candidates. And again, just to reiterate, the questions we're really looking for are questions that, all the candidates can answer, something really that's relevant to Union County. So we were very thoughtful with our question process and what questions we wanted to ask.
So then if somebody has an agenda item, for instance, they want to ask a particular candidate about a issue, that we're not accommodating that just because that potentially can be confrontive. Now, it doesn't mean that question is not valid. It just has to be perhaps reframed in a manner that is relevant to both, so that both candidates can answer that question. So, do you have anything you want to throw in on that, Calvin?
I don't think so. I think you guys laid out the process pretty well.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit, and that is a constant struggle in forums, is to ask relevant questions, to forward questions, because both of these are county races. And so then, oftentimes, and even, as I've talked to the commissioners, there are times that they'll get a call about, hey, my road, my street in LeGrand really needs some help. And the commissioner says, well, yeah, but that's in the city, that's not in the county. So sometimes there's an education process that goes along that helps people to understand what is county and what is in the city jurisdictions. And so then part of the vetting process is helping the public understand that, hey, there's some stuff that the county doesn't have any control over whatsoever. So we've spent quite a bit of time in trying to make the questions or reformulate them, get this, so like if the question is submitted, and then reformulate that question in a way so that it keeps the spirit of what maybe the person is trying to ask, but makes it more relevant for the county.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you anxious for this? At the end of the day, you guys are going to be the ones that are going to be moderating, and yeah. So, Caitlin, you go first. What do you think about
Yeah,
this?
well, I'll say this is my first forum that I'll be moderating, so a few nerves there. But I've had a couple other opportunities to practice my public speaking, so hopefully this will go off without a hitch. But and I know Calvin's really great at this stuff, so I'm looking forward to having him up there with me. But yeah.
What do you think, Calvin?
Yeah, super, super excited to come back to LeGrand and be able to do something I love so much and be working with Caitlin, who's my first time working with her. She's amazing. Very excited for what the Chamber's been doing and the way they're moving, by the way. So I'm really excited. We have 4 really great candidates, and I know personally for me, I'm going to be making my voting decision based off of this forum. So I'm really excited for this, and yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Well, and I'm spending, our crew here is going to be spending time getting this on the air, but my time is going to be spent on, because there's a lot of tech that is happening just to make the forum. We're going to have an electronic timer, and so that the candidates can see that timer count down, and then also so that the public can see that timer, and so the people on the stream can see that timer. And then also we're working so that the questions that are being asked will be on a screen so that the candidate can read that and listen to that as the questions are coming up, and then also those same questions will be on the stream. And so there's a lot of tech in making all of that happen reliably. So no, I'm excited. I'll be glad when it's over, So just because I love live events and I love doing them. It's what we do really well, but it's a huge amount of pressure, and then it'll be done. Yeah. So the questions, again, the public can submit questions. They will have the opportunity to submit. Put that QR code again up. And if you go to that is the place where you currently can submit questions. I think you guys are taking them through.
Yes, honestly, we'll take them just through.
Right up until, yeah, okay. And then the same QR code or the same thing will also be the same mechanism will be used to get questions. People will have the opportunity to write their questions at the event. And so, but the reality is that somebody's going to take those questions and they're going to go to that same electronic forum and enter that information in. So then that kind of streamlines the process of vetting those questions and pushing them forward.
I got a question.
Yeah.
And this is probably something that somebody else would think that was watching. Who's deciding the questions, and how did you come about deciding who was going to decide what questions were going to be asked?
Well, so the initial questions, the 4 questions that are being submitted initially have been put together by us 3. And we've done this. We've gone through a process where the whole point of it is to figure out what the public needs to know that they might not have had an opportunity to know before. And so we've given, and the one thing that you did mention is the first 4 questions that are submitted to the candidates that will come from this committee for the candidates. They have cues on what those topics will be. And so then they will have an opportunity to prepare for those topics. For instance, like with the commissioners, one of them is economic vitality in the Union County jurisdiction, for instance. And so they don't know the specific question, but they know there's going to be a question about economic vitality. And so then the other questions, 3 questions that come in, they're going to be, there's a lot of questions that are duplicate, So then a lot of the questions that the public, which is confirming that those are the 4 questions that we would have passed on, because a lot of those questions have already been asked, And so then, or it kind of gives a feel of like, okay, how can this is something we're seeing the same question multiple times, and so can we figure out a question to forward to the candidate process that will answer what it is that we think the public is asking. So, yeah.
I still, who's deciding what questions the public submits that are going to be asked?
Oh, okay. So now,
that's my question.
So then the questions. So then there will be a group of people actively that night. At this point, it's Steve Clements and Alex McCadden.
Okay, that was the question.
Right. Yeah. Who will be reviewing those live questions? Okay, and passing that
Gotcha.
forward. Yeah.
Just so they know.
And
I don't
again,
care
but
myself.
at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a. I mean, it's a little bit of an audible call. So at the end of the day, I mean, if Caitlin, if depending on how the questions are answered, because sometimes candidates will veer into a territory and answer a question that's going to be asked down the road.
Happens quite often.
Right, and so then there's no use in asking that same question again, clearly, and so then a lot of that will just happen. I mean, so it could be that Caitlin and so the questions that will be passed on to them will be recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's going to be Caitlin and Calvin that are going to be making the final call as to, hey, we have room for one more question. So the goal. Talk about the time. We were hoping, Caitlin, talk about how much time are we hoping this is going to take and. So on and so forth.
Absolutely. So we're hoping, to get a prompt start at 6 p.m. And then, I mean, with 7 questions at about 2 minutes, we're hoping to get through the county commissioner candidates probably within an hour, definitely, so that we do have time to take a quick break so everybody can stretch their legs before we get into the sheriff candidates. And then, they will have the exact same amount of questions. So we anticipate it'll probably take about the same time.
You're thinking 2 hours?
That's what it looks like right now.
The one
Give or
with
take.
9 wasn't even 2 hours.
I know, yeah.
It'll probably go a bit faster than that,
But you're the
honestly,
math
but-
dude.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of
I
my
mean,
head.
yeah,
How many people are going to stay engaged for 2 hours?
I don't
That's
know.
a
We'll
long
find
time.
out. But I mean but I mean, and that's part of the dilemma a little bit is that, I mean, I agree. As a candidate, I thought the one at the high school with 9 candidates was going to take forever, but it actually zipped through very quickly.
Yeah,
because
I
part of it,
remember we talked about it before.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah,
thought it was going to
yeah.
take a
Yeah.
long time. And
But
it
I
didn't.
mean, but what happens is the candidates 2 minutes when you go to answer a particular question. As a candidate, I can tell you
you
this.
ain't going to talk for 2 minutes.
I mean, the informational side of you only has maybe a minute of answer. You can take the second minute veering off and being a politician and talking about something else. But
Right.
oftentimes it takes less than 2 minutes to answer a question.
I'd be like, yeah, Union County's economic vitality is super. Did you know that Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player ever? There's no argument.
Yeah. Well, and I would say one thing that's a little bit interesting is that we're working really hard that the questions are relevant and answerable.
And hopefully not repetitive from the last 4.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there will be some,
Yeah.
but anyhow, relevant and answerable. But we really hope that the candidates will specifically answer the question. And so, and so the moderators have given, they do have permission to say, well, hey, here, if I give you another 30 seconds, can you take a stab at actually answering the question or something like that? So, we really want the candidates to work at answering the specific question. So,
That's just, you just need to be clear with them right up front. Like,
well,
hey,
all of the information that you're hearing
beating
right
around
now,
the bush.
all of the information you're hearing, they've already received this information. So, yeah. Anyhow, and the public the public will get on the night of, they will hear all this again also. Well, anything else you guys want to add before we quit?
Yeah, I just want to add in, please vote. Make sure you're registered to vote. You still can register, but we don't, there's the top of the ticket and whatnot. But these local offices that we're talking about today, commissioner, sheriff, even like attorney general, state senate, state rep, those are incredibly important and have more or a lot of impact on your daily life, and you can really make an impact with your single vote in these races. So just make sure to vote.
Good.
Yes, sir.
All right, Caitlin, any closing comments?
Nope, I'd just echo exactly what Calvin said. Yeah, if you care about where Union County is going in the future, get out and vote.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for jumping into this adventure with me. And we've gotten to know each other better through this process, and really appreciate it. So, all right, man, you want to get us out
Let's
of here?
do it. On this day, October 1st, 1888, National Geographic magazine is first published. 1888. 1890, on this day, U.S. Congress established Yosemite National Park. 1891, Stanford University in California opens its doors for the very first time ever. And its first graduation class, future U.S. President Herbert Hoover. I never knew that until today. 1908, Henry Ford introduces the Model T car. How much do you think it cost in 1908?
$250.
$825.
Wow.
$825. 1957, the first appearance of In God We Trust on U.S. paper currency. 1961, the Beach Boys record their debut single, Surfin', which basically introduced a new music style, like the surf rock era.
Right, yeah.
1962, Johnny Carson hosts the first Tonight Show on NBC. The guests are Tony Bennett, Mel Brooks, and Joan Crawford. 1971, on this day, Walt Disney World opened in Bay Lake, Florida. And 2019, on this day, Florida becomes the first state in the United States allowing teachers to carry guns in schools. On this day, the number one song in the country in 1984 is Let's Go Crazy by Prince and the Revolution. And then the quote of the day comes from W.C. Fields. If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bull. One more time. If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bull.
Yeah, that might be a really good politician statement.
I love that quote. It's awesome. Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you guys for being with us. Thanks, Caitlin and Calvin. Yeah.
Thank you, Brent.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And and the forum this Thursday night at 6 p.m. We'll go live a little before that, and then also the Baker Pendleton game will be the night afterwards. Yep. And so don't forget those. We'll see you soon.